All right, back of the pack ultra guy here. I know I always say it, but I'm really excited, extra excited for this one. We have Toby Steel on the podcast today, and thank you to the internet because Toby is very far from Arizona. He's actually in Australia, and so thank you again, Toby, for scheduling. We are in completely different time zones, so this is exciting that we're finally getting together. I'll let Toby kind of tell his side of the story, but I met Toby during Cocodona on course. I had heard that there was some fellas from Australia that came over to do Cocodona, and I was just enamored with that idea for logistical reasons and different climate, time, everything. I just was so enamored with this idea. And I was doing Sedona Canyon, so I was started halfway, obviously, and I see Toby from behind, and I saw the bib had the Australian flag, and so I was like, oh my gosh, I found one. So I was like, I had to introduce myself, and funny enough, Toby recognized me, and we visited for a minute, and it was, it was a really special time because, and I'm not going to make this about me because I want to hear all about Toby's story, but that was a really tough race for me, not by distance or anything else. It was kind of a low race. I was kind of in a low point when we visited. It kind of boosted me up. So it was, selfishly, it was a pretty cool moment for me to visit with somebody. And anyway, without further ado, we've got Toby Steel on the podcast today. Toby, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you found athletics, running, and just kind of share that story with us.
So I'm Toby. I grew up on the east coast of Australia in a city called Brisbane. Most of my life, I was surrounded by sports. That was not associated with athletics. I never really did athletics until I was graduated. I found ultra running when I was about 23. I always enjoyed running, like at school, cross country and stuff like that. But I didn't really find a love for the sport until I was about 23, and then from there it's just spiraled into this thing that is kind of my identity now.
I love it. Very cool. So 23. Well, you grew up in school doing cross country, which is very different than ultra, but is a very good foundational start. I can't imagine your coach being like, "Hey, go run 20 miles for your practice."
Well, to be honest, it was just like I was training for rugby, so rugby was my main sport. And then when school cross country came around, like inter-house or whatever you want to call it, I just really enjoyed it and tried to do the best I can. And post high school, I kind of dropped off sport in general, and then when I finished kind of the early 20s phase and found running, that's when it like really kicked off.
That's awesome. Rugby, very impressive. I have quite a few Tongan friends, Polynesian friends, and all my early 20s, they'd always invite me to go play rugby with them, and I was like, do you realize my size versus your size? Like, I'm going to get crushed out there. Oh, no, it's okay. Well, it's just a practice. I was like, nah, practice or not, you guys run into me at full speed. I'm going to feel it. So kudos to you. And a very impressive sport, very fast paced. I love watching it. Can't say I fully understand it all, but very impressive athletically. That's a impressive sport. So you find ultra. Obviously, I'm an ignorant American. I know nothing about the ultra scene in Australia. Is it pretty big there?
It's on its way up with the races that I'd say come into the forefront of the sport. We have a few UTMB races down in New South Wales, and
Nice.
just below Sydney, there's the Kosciuszko National Park that now has Ultra Trail Kosciuszko, which is owned by UTMB. But as far as like the bigger ultra stuff, so 200 miles plus, we used to have a Triple Crown, but as of this year, it's been discontinued. So there's only going to be one 200-mile race in Australia. But the sport's always growing, and like every state has its races. It's just nowhere near the size of what goes on in America.
Right on. So, when you say you found ultra, I'd like to hear about that because the sport is obscure.
Mm.
Even in America, it's obscure enough that people hear about it and go, "What is that? A relay race?" And you go, "No, it's not a relay." So, how did you find it? Was it like a running club or
So
something online or?
So I started my running journey like as a solo runner, and so I didn't really know anything about like the run community or run clubs. I had to kind of meet new people and sort of branch out, so to speak, and try and find them. So I started running, and I was aiming towards a marathon. Once I finished that marathon, I crossed the finish line and literally said to like my first thought when I crossed the finish line was, "Is that it?" And then from there, I had a Europe trip planned for 3 months, so running kind of got put on hold. And then while I was in Europe, I was looking for what I could do when I arrived back home in Brisbane, and then found this ultra marathon down in Tasmania, which I did. It was like 64 Ks from one end of an island to the other. And then after that, one of my friends sent me a link to this 100K race in my hometown, Brisbane, and literally trained 6 months by myself. Still had no idea what a run club was, and finished my first 100K. And then pretty much the thing that introduced me to run clubs in the run community was my partner, Katie. And from there, I kind of started running with people and meeting new people. And then, yeah, since then, I've kind of always run with people. And like the solo runs still happen, but more so than anything, I tend to run with or train with
Nice.
people.
Now, I know run clubs. Did you meet Katie at a run club? Because I know they can kind of be also better than dating apps, is from what I've heard. I've been married almost 20 years now, so I wouldn't know, but from what I hear.
So you actually met Katie at Cocodona as well.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so she was my pacer at the time I ran into you. And yeah, she has her own run club here in Brisbane around our community, Newstead. And yeah, pretty much what I did, I slid into her DMs before a backyard ultra race, and I said, "Let's do a loop together." And it never eventuated, funny to say. And then after that, I was like, "Oh, because we didn't get a loop in, do you want to go for a coffee or a wine?" And we went for a wine, and from there, we kind of blossomed. And
That's awesome.
yeah, I've been with
That's
her 3
exciting.
years. I've been with her 3 years now, and her run club here in Newstead's probably one of the biggest, and it's just growing constantly. And the reach she has, and yeah, she's a run coach and personal trainer, so she helps a lot of people to achieve their goals in the running
How
space.
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I think it's neat, especially when you find a partner that you share something that you both really enjoy.
That's it. Eh?
Not
It's,
like
we got to like it. It's like the biggest thing we have in common, and like I'm lucky enough she's traveled like around the world to help me achieve my goals. So to have someone like that's very special.
that's awesome. So you find a partner and a run club at the same time, and you
Yeah.
start running, and I'd like to hear about the race in Tasmania. It was 100K, right?
So the race in Tasmania was 64K. So
That's right.
Yeah. It was on this island called Bruny Island, so it's just a small barge ride across from the mainland of Tasmania. And yeah, I was coming back from Europe. I had been kind of up to my old ways over in Europe. I was still like less serious about running, and I came back and I was a bit heavier, a bit unfit, and yeah, literally had 8 weeks to train myself for my first ultra marathon, and it was probably to this day the most painful ultra marathon I've ever experienced, just because of the kind of state my body was in.
Well, that says a lot from the guy who just finished Cocodona.
Yeah, I know it's crazy to say.
That's exciting. So you did the 100K back in your hometown.
Yeah, so it's actually happening. I think it's the 7th year is about to happen. So I did. It's called the Guzzler. So it has 100K, 50K, 21K, and 10K. And at the time, it was, to me, to my knowledge, it was the only 100K race in Brisbane. So I signed up, trained myself for 6 months, 6 weeks out, sprained my ankle. I was running once a week for that 6 weeks. The rest I was on a bike. Started and finished in 18 hours, and yeah, this year I'm going back, and it'll be my 5th finish. So
Nice.
yeah, the Guzzler is like, it's such an awesome event, and it's a hard race, and I love doing it because the community and the company that runs it is amazing.
Now, you say it's tough. Paint me a picture of it, because again, I've never been to Australia, Brisbane, obviously. What is it? Is there a lot of elevation? Is it the temperature? What it makes it? The terrain?
So in Brisbane, our weather's very temperamental. Like today's a beautiful day, but for the past 2 and a bit days, it's been raining. So because it's been raining for the last 2.5 days, and then now the sun's out, and say you go for a run, it'll be very humid. So the Guzzler happens in the middle of July, which is our winter. But literally anything could happen. Like I've had humid days, I've had rain days on the Guzzler. It's 100 Ks with nearly 5,000 meters of elevation. So I don't know what that is in feet, but it's very hard. And then the bushland, it's more like fire trails and like some single trails. And then you kind of go off the main fire trail. Like there's one part of the course, like you wouldn't know it existed if you didn't go there. The only way you'd know it existed is if you literally go and train or run the Guzzler. It's called Township Break, and you literally slide down on your bum, and then there's probably like a 5 meter gap at the bottom, and then it's straight up pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could imagine that on a really rainy day would be extra slippery and
Oh yeah, and like it's all like rutted out, like from where the rain runs off and stuff like that. Like there's huge like gaps in the rock or whatever you want to call it, and sometimes it's easier to go put your feet in there than like sliding down on your bum.
Very cool. So you have your trip to Europe. You set your sights on the race in Tasmania. You get it done, even though you had too much good food in Europe. You get it done, and then you do the race in Brisbane. You do the Guzzler. What's next? So you got the 100K under your belt. Where did you go from there?
So I had the 100K under my belt. I finished that. I was dealing with some injuries after that, and then the following year I went back to the same marathon and took 50 minutes off my original time. So I ran.
Whoa.
I think it was like a 3. So first marathon was like 4:15, and then my second road marathon was 3:20.
Wow.
And then I think it was around COVID was that second year, so it was like 2020. The Guzzler's second edition got postponed until November. So I did a virtual Guzzler in July, where I ran like a 10-mile loop for 100 Ks, and then the actual Guzzler was in November, so it was a summertime 100K. And then in my second edition of the Guzzler, I was kind of like, I'd still been new to the sport, so I was still doing my research and like watching YouTube videos like a self-trained athlete would. And then I was really perplexed on how much ultra runners can eat during a ultra marathon. So I saw all these videos of these runners just like downing all this food, and I'm like, okay, if I want to be good at this sport, that's what I need to do. So I got to the second edition of the Guzzler, and then I was pretty much just force feeding myself for the first 30k, and then by 70k, I was just like, I had all this food just sitting in my stomach. It wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't moving fast enough to burn it. And then at 70k, I got to this checkpoint, and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I feel like shit. I can't keep going. I don't want to keep going. And then I had these rangers drive me out of the forest, and I was just sitting in the back with these two random rangers. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, what have I done? Like, I could have kept going. I remember walking through my house, and my girlfriend at the time, and one of my best mates at the time, they just hugged me, and I just burst into tears because I was felt so disappointed in myself. And yeah, woke up the next day, went and had some beers, and I was just like thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, what have I done? I could have kept going. And then that was kind of the point where I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, if I want to do well at this sport, or if I want to keep going at this sport and seeing what I can achieve, maybe I need to get a coach. And then I reached out to a run club down in Victoria, and Melbourne and Victoria, and said I want to get coached. And then had my first run coach, Simone Brick, who's a well-established mountain runner. She's actually a Solomon athlete here in Australia, and
Nice.
yeah, she was my first coach, and I was coached by her for 4 years up until the start of last year, where I was just ready to go out on my own and kind of find my enjoyment in running again.
So the the self-taught YouTube eat a lot didn't work.
It didn't work.
I if I have one ultra superpower, it's I can eat a lot of food, and
Mm.
I love that because I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
out there and I remember at one of the aid stations, I don't remember if it was Munns Park or which one, that I had like 2 hamburgers. I mean, I was just eating a
yeah,
ton. I can eat a lot of food. I'm not very
yeah, yeah,
fast, but I could eat a lot of food.
yeah, yeah.
But it's so interesting because everyone is so different. People, when it
100%.
comes to when it comes to this, some people. I have a close friend. He's an incredible runner,
Yeah.
but man, his stomach just is temperamental, and he can't hold things down, or it always gets upset. And then there's guys like me, or people like me, that just eat and eat and eat. I'm sure there's people in the middle, but um, DNF. Just want to pause on that real quick because those are tough.
Yeah.
Um, I you don't really. Someone looking from the outside in that may not be close to you go, oh, it's all right, you tried, but it doesn't. People don't understand what does to you mentally, right? It
Yeah.
really is a hard thing to get through. So
Hmm.
if you don't mind, besides the hugs from your friends and then the beers, what else helped you get through that moment? Because you obviously came back from it, but what was that helped you get through that?
I just think just being an easygoing person, and just you got to kind of sit back and like really think about things and think about life in general, and say finishing a race or not finishing a race, it's literally not that big of a deal. Like, it's awesome if you do finish it, it's fine if you don't, and just being able to just like roll with the punches, because like there's always going to be another race. There's a race every weekend. The race will happen next year. Um, just being able to sit back and like process it all to yourself, and just tell yourself that really it's going to be okay is all you need to do, because really there's bigger issues in your life outside of running, and bigger issues in the world as a whole, than not finishing an ultra marathon or not finishing a running race, because really that's all it is. It's just a running race.
Yeah, it's good perspective, right? In the moment you're like so zoned in on it, but the second you start to kind of zoom out, you realize, there is a lot
Yeah,
more going on, and friends and family help, but it, it,
exactly.
it it's not trivial. It does hurt and it's hard,
Yeah,
but I
for
like
sure.
I like that perspective, right? It's like, look, there's a race next year, there's a race next week. I can snap out of this. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
snap out of it. You find a running coach. She sounds great.
yeah,
Uh, Solomon athlete, mountain runner.
yeah, yeah.
Where did that go? Did you get back to the Guzzler after
Um,
that?
yeah. So I think it was kind of at the point in the ultra running space when backyard ultras was
Mm,
like kind of made like on its way up. So I did my first backyard ultra the following year, and I think I ran like 115 kilometers. Um,
wow.
so that was kind of the comeback race, and it was kind of like to prove to myself that yeah, I could still do it. And what happened in November that year was just a little hiccup. It was just a learning curve, and then I think I did go back to the Guzzler the following year, and I ended up running a PR. So
Nice.
yeah,
That feels good, I'm sure,
oh
coming
yeah, it
back
felt
from
amazing.
the
Yeah,
previous experience.
yeah, for
So on,
sure.
on a timeline, have you connected with your current partner and coach who runs the run club, Katie, or is this before that experience?
This is before I met Katie.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't meet Katie. I met Katie start of 2022,
Okay.
and
So
this is 2021.
perfect. So you're just about to find a run club close to home.
Yeah.
You go back and get the Guzzler again. At what point did you start kind of the backyard ultra is important to talk about because for the people who are new to the sport, a backyard ultra is, there's slightly variations of all different flavors, but at the end of the day, you're pretty much running a loop around
Yeah.
this main camp, and it starts on a certain time every so often, and you have to keep going until you can't go anymore.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. I've never actually done one. I think my ADHD and everything would just be like, "Oh, we're back again to the same
Yeah.
place. Oh
Yeah.
no!"
Yeah. Yeah.
The point to point I always like because I'm like, I'm almost there. I'm getting there. I'm getting closer. So you experience the backyard ultra. What happens next?
I'm still trying to figure things out. I think at this point in my running career, um, and then I can't. No, it wasn't 2021. So I'm still doing like 100k races and then backyard ultra. So I'm kind of in the scene of the backyard where I'm trying to, I think, achieve the 100-mile distance. So I was kind of using the backyard ultra as that platform to see if I can run further than I ever have before. So I ran the Guzzler and then ran another backyard ultra, but they were separated by a month. So at this backyard ultra, I was more fatigued, more like than the previous backyard ultra. And then from that backyard ultra, it's 2022, and then I go into my first one again with an injury, with an Achilles injury, and I'm like, all right, this is it. This is like where I run 100 miles, injury or not, I'm going to get there. And then
Nice.
I'm like 18 hours into my third backyard ultra, and like I feel like I've just started. And then I run like a 40-minute loop, which is I came in second on that loop because I felt amazing. And then I had a longer rest than usual, and then so my Achilles kind of seized up, and then I went to walk to the starting corral, and my foot was like sideways, and I couldn't run. So I'm like, okay, this is it. So I DNF'd it 130 kilometers. The next day, like my foot was just like flopping forward. I couldn't do anything really. Like walking was hard. And then after that, I kind of had to do. I think it was like 8 weeks of recovery. So I was pretty much on a stationary bike in the gym for 8 weeks, like low impact type stuff, and then had to learn to run again pretty much. So it was like run, walk. So run for a minute, walk for 4 minutes. So I don't know if you've ever done it, but coming back from injury is quite annoying and frustrating. The fact that you have to do run, walk, but it is needed because if you don't take your time, you're going to be injured for life. So I come back from the third backyard ultra injured. I recover, and then I go back to the guzzler again. Try and run a PR, run a similar. I've run similar times in the guzzler like every time I've done it, and then this third time was like more so to test the legs sort of thing. And then I had met Katie by now, and this is kind of where the year my running career takes off, where I apply for this race called Coast to Cozzy, which is 240 kilometres or 150 miles. And it's down in New South Wales, where we run from the east coast of Australia to its tallest peak, Mount Kosciuszko. And yeah, from there it's kind of been like, okay, I can run this far. What's next?
Well, tell me a little bit about that race. That sounds exciting. You start on a coastal city, and then it sounds like you go all the way up into the mountains. So that sounds like a interesting set of terrain.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a road race, but it's more dirt road and then like a fair bit of bitumen as well. 2022 I did another backyard ultra. Didn't get 100 miles. Was kind of in a crossroads of my running career. Didn't really know what to do. Was trying to figure out if 100 Ks was my distance. Like, is it worth trying to go 100 miles, or do I just focus on 100K, getting quicker at that, or do I go even smaller, like 50K? And then me and Katie, we were at a party, and one of my mates who's from Sydney, he mentioned this race, which was found in the rabbit hole of research that I got caught in when I started. And it's called Coast to Cozzy. I'm not sure how long it's been around, but it's one of the oldest ultra marathons, and it's invite only. Only 50 or 60 people do it each year in November or December. You have to apply, kind of like Badwater, and it's up to the race director's discretion if you get in or not. So we were at this party, and my mate mentioned it to me. And I'm like, yeah, it's so hard to get into. You had to meet all the qualifying criteria. So part of that was having to run 100 miles, which I hadn't done at the time. And we went onto the Facebook page at this party, and applications had just closed that year for Coast to Cozzy. And I was like, oh, maybe next year I'll get 100 miles and then I'll be able to apply. I woke up the next day and just literally had this weird feeling come over me. It was just one of those moments. Like, you can't really describe it. And I went onto the actual website of the race, and the application page was still active. And I was like, well, if it's still active, I might as well just throw my hat in. Like, the worst that could happen is they don't get the application, or they just say no. So I applied, and you just write a little blurb about yourself. You write the races you've done, whatnot. And I tell everyone I would never be able to write anything like I did that day about myself again. It was literally in that moment, I was like, okay, this is what I've achieved. I'd run 100Ks like 11 times at this stage. And I said, I don't meet the qualifying criteria. I know that. I haven't run 100 miles. I know that. But if you invite me to this race, I'll finish it. And had no expectation of getting in, because obviously I didn't meet the criteria. And 2 weeks later, I was at work at 2:30 in the afternoon. Random phone number calls my phone, and it was one of the race directors, Greg Wallace, and he said, we'd like to invite you down to the race in December. And
nice.
Had 12 weeks to train my ass off, and got down there and had to run 150 miles in, I think it's 46 or 48 hours. And I finished in 40 hours and without any sleep. And the rest is history. That's
impressive without any sleep. That's tough.
It is tough. Trust me. I really struggle running at night time until Cocodona. Actually, like, Cocodona's really instilled some confidence in my running abilities. So that in and of itself is an amazing story. I'm sure there's a lot more you could share about that. I mean,
seeing the applications are closed and just kind of brushing it off, and then having
Yeah,
this feeling like just get on there and check, and you check, and
yeah,
I'm not going to get in, have
yeah,
this
yeah.
amazing writing experience,
Yeah, no,
you
it's like I could never write anything like that again. It's
you
crazy.
become like an author all of a sudden, and you're just writing this incredible story, and obviously it moved them. They invite you in, you do it.
Yeah.
And what I think is cool about that, Toby, and I just want to pause on this, is I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes I can get a mental block where I'm like, oh, I can just do 100 Ks. Like I can never achieve that 100 miler,
Yeah.
and it's just like you smash through that, and
Yeah.
and do a great time,
Yeah.
not even sleeping, which I can't imagine. But you break, obviously a PR by doing 100, and then even going further. And so mentally, what did that feel like to break through that, and then you go, wait, I did 100, but I did 150.
Yeah. Yeah. So up until this point, like when races come up like this, so my first coast to Cozzy, like the self doubt was there at the start of the race because like I hadn't run 100 miles. I'd never ran this far in my life. Like I don't know what the weather was going to be like. So you always think about, oh, I don't know if I'm going to finish. Like it's always there, no matter like what you've done in the past. It's always there. Um, but sometimes you surprise yourself, and like I think the first coast to Cozzy I ran 100 miles in, I think it was like 22 or 23 hours. So, and then pretty much death
Nice.
marched. I death marched the last 50 miles in 16 hours. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I know that feeling well. The Death March.
Oh, it's unreal.
I think every ultra runner that's done those longer distances is nodding their head, going, "Yep, that's you just got to
Yeah,
march it in."
yeah,
So
and you want to run so much, and you want to like get to the finish line as quick as possible. But sometimes all you can do is just literally walk it in.
I'll send you this funny video of me at Cocodona. I'm running
Yeah.
behind my pacer, and my pacer's literally walking,
Oh
and
yeah,
I felt like I felt like I was moving so good.
that was me for like half of the race. I'm like trying to run, and then all my paces are just like walking next to you. I'm like, do you like my run while you walk?
Yeah, it's a thing. I'm telling you, it's just funny to watch because
Yeah,
when you're
yeah.
experiencing it, you're like, because I wasn't paying attention to him. I was like, watching the trail, and then I see the video that my other buddy took as we're coming into the aid station. I'm like,
Mm,
that doesn't look very good. Anyway, so you get the 150 with this amazing experience at the Costa Kazi.
yep.
How do you find Cocodona?
Like, um, well, when it started, I was quite like I don't even know if I knew what 200-mile races were. Um, like when Cocodona started, I probably had an idea, but maybe I think I went through the process of actually like I thought it was 200 Ks, and then I'm like, oh wait, it's 200 miles. And then I kind of knew about Moab because of Courtney. I didn't know about the Triple Crown, and then obviously Cocodona comes out of nowhere. And at the time, I didn't really know who or what Araviper was. Um, and then Cocodona started, and as it's grown over the years, I've just been drawn to it because of the distance and then because of the landscapes you run through. And I just think being able to run point to point through what, like, you probably run through like 4 different landscapes, like desert, mountain, cities, the Red Rocks of Sedona, the pine forest, and then over a mountain to get into Flagstaff. It's like, how can you put this all into one race, and how does a trail exist that runs what 256 miles from like one city to the other? And then you just think about it, it's like, okay, this is amazing. I need to get over there and do this. Though it is 256 miles, I just want to see this place. And I just think in general, they're just like breaking the game that is ultra running, like the live stream, the interviews along the way of the runners, even though like they'll have the elites at the front and then the mid packers and then back of the packers. They're interviewing everyone. They're giving everyone their like time in the spotlight sort of thing. The aid stations are amazing, and just the community and how it's run, I think, is like second to none. It's literally maybe to Western States, probably second. But if you take Western States out of the question, I think Cocodona is number one in North America.
Yeah, it's Air Vipa's definitely found their footing, and they're standing pretty strong on the whole experience. And really, it is an experience.
100%.
An experience on YouTube, sitting at your house watching it. It's an experience crewing, pacing, spectating. It's a real. They've done an amazing job turning it into an experience. So you go ahead.
I have. So Katie has a run club and run community here, and I have people like she knows, but obviously I don't know. I have people coming up to me on the street and saying, "Well done at Cocodona." I'm like, "Who are you?"
Katie told us all about you and all about the event. That's awesome.
And she'll come home, like she might come home today, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I met this random person, and they were like, oh, I was so invested in Cocodona for like 5 days, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen." It's like crazy. It's crazy to think that like non-runners are like tuning in, watching this race over 5 days. Like probably over the 5 days, you'd put more effort into trying to watch Cocodona than you would trying to get some work done.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. If my company ever sees this, I don't watch the live stream. I'm working. Just kidding. I do peek at it, but though it is an experience, and that it is special because when I was growing up, have you ever heard of the Hoyts? That he used to push his son. His son, I think it was cerebral palsy. He would push him in a cart, doing Ironmans.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would watch this and just the humanity of it, right? The love of the father and the son, and what he was doing, and the awareness he was bringing. I feel like ultra does that, especially at these longer distances, because it's such a. And I'm going to use the phrase, and I know that we're not superhuman. We're obviously all very mortal, but it's a superhuman thing for somebody who has never been around it.
Yeah.
And they go, "Wait, what?
Yeah.
He's
100%.
doing what?
Yeah.
He's sleeping outside, and he's just what's going?" And they can't comprehend it at first, and then as they start to marinate on it and think about it, it's like, holy cow, there's no way. And so I think that it brings this incredible motivation to people. I mean, the live stream is just blown up, and the amount of people that are finding ultra through a 250-mile multi-day event is amazing. The sport really is blowing up, and I think Air Vipa, like I said, they're standing very firm on a huge foundation of what they've done. It's amazing what they're doing, and they're bringing this motivation and this amazing inspiration to just tons and tons of people.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You hear about Cocodona, you start watching it. Now, Australia is not close to Arizona. I've never been on the flight, but I can imagine it's long. Help me kind of paint the picture of you found Cocodona, but paint me the picture of, okay, I'm going to do it. Because like I was saying before we started recording, it's in my backyard. So I just pack a bag and a cooler and gather some buddies and we go. But for you, it's totally different. So I'd love to hear about this. It's just fascinating to me. Can you break that down for us? What's that like? What does that look like?
So it kind of started, like, if I was to be honest, the thought of actually doing it probably started 2 years ago. And then last year, it was like, okay, I'm doing it because I saw how quick it was growing, the potential of it to become a lottery, which I hope it doesn't eventuate, because I think that again separates it from other races. Even though like the sign-up process is crazy, like it's already sold out and there's 700 people on the wait list. I think what separates them, like from hands down from the other 200s, is it's not lottery, and if they keep it that way, I think that would be an amazing thing for everyday runners. So yeah, it was last year. I was watching the race. I'm like, okay, next year's the year. It's going to happen. Um, they opened registration during the race. At the time, I didn't have the money to sign up because it's like the entry fee for us is like $3,000 Australian, which is crazy. Um, so I was like, okay. It took me like a day to think of this, but I'm like, I'll let it sell out and then I'll jump straight on the wait list. So I let that happen. I was number 4 or 5, I think, on the wait list. It was about
Wow.
six. Yeah, it was about 6 months until there was any sort of movement. So I moved up one spot in 6 months, and then 2 months later, I think it was in January, early January, was actually when I got an invite, and then after that, it kind of snowballed, and then I think like 400 people ended up coming off the wait list. So yeah, a year ago, I said I'm doing it. Jumped on the wait list. Didn't find out until January this year, so I couldn't really figure out any sort of logistics. I was looking. Um, Booked my flights. Flights were relatively cheap. I got
Hmm.
direct. I got direct as well, so I had no layovers. Um, had an Airbnb in Camp Verde booked. Have relatives in LA, so that was lucky. And then booked an Airbnb after the race in Utah. So, yeah, booked the flight. It was 12 hours, so 12 and a half hours, which is an hour quicker than it was scheduled. The flight there wasn't too bad. And then, so we flew into LA, and then figuring out the logistics of would we have a vehicle, like a normal vehicle, or would we have a camper van sort of set up? And then would we have accommodation along the race route was kind of the hardest thing to figure out. So what we did, we had an Airbnb in Camp Verde, which was central to all sort of major aid stations. And when I say central, it was still like an hour drive each way. But I had no accommodation along the race route. We had a camper van, which was going to be used for the crew to sleep in. I was the only person who tried to sleep in the camper van. The crew did the hour drive to aid stations and the hour drive back, um, which turned out to be all right, but not all right. But we flew into LA, and then we stayed in LA for about 6 days. We picked up the camper van, and then we drove 6 hours to Arizona to the Airbnb. We stayed in the Airbnb for a few days, and then I had my dad and Katie with me for the whole trip. And then I had two mates who flew in 2 days before the race on the Saturday from Australia. So they had, I think they had like 24 hours or 27 hours of travel. So they had a layover in Sydney and Melbourne, and then they had a layover in LA, I think. And then one of their planes was delayed in LA. So
Oh,
we were in Phoenix on the Saturday for like longer than expected. We were there for half a day, which wasn't ideal. But they got there, figured out the kind of the race strategy or the scheduling with the camper van. As I started running, they figured out amongst themselves if they'd sleep in the camper van or if they'd go back to the Airbnb, and they just ended up driving back to the Airbnb. With the food, I was quite lucky. I didn't have to bring any supplements or nutrition over from Australia. I had everything in LA sent to the house that I was staying at. Um,
nice.
on the way, excuse me, on the way back, I had all these leftovers, which was about 40 kilos, so it was a whole suitcase. So I had to pay for extra luggage on the way back. But logistically, it wasn't too bad. I think for the crew, it was harder than me actually running the race because Katie, she's told me that the hour drive and then waiting around to see where I was at, and then the hour drive back to meet me, they just lost so much sleep. Like they probably slept just as less as I did, or maybe a bit more.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Having crewed and paced and then done events, the crew does not sleep. It
Yeah.
they have grand ideas about sleeping, but for some reason it just doesn't happen. They're moving around so much, and so kudos to them. And you must have some good mates to
Oh
fly
yeah,
over
they're
from
amazing.
Australia
Yeah.
to help you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Um,
amazing.
so logistically, you it wasn't as bad as you thought.
No.
You get here. What was the race like? Because obviously there's a huge build up to it, mentally, and you're anticipating the whole thing. And
Mm.
God, what's it going to be like? The weather seems more like it's Australian friendly than it was Arizona desert
Yeah,
rat friendly this year.
yeah.
But I'd love to hear about the actual race.
So, like, I didn't really have a feeling about the race. Like, getting in didn't really surprise me because I was kind of expecting it. And so there was no feeling of, like, excitement or nervousness when I actually gained entry. And then it wasn't until probably the day before or a couple of days before I was like, okay, this is actually happening. I need to, like, start focusing on what I'm about to do. Um, and I just always, before I run, I always have this feeling in my body of like a pre-race sickness, like I've come down with something. It doesn't really eventuate. And obviously the weather this year, as everyone knows, threw a spanner in the works. So it was a beautiful morning on the Monday morning. It was slightly overcast. It was very cool. It was a bit humid, which is more like Brisbane, so I wasn't too mad about that. It was nice in the shade. Um, and then first day we got rained on, so I just chucked the rain jacket on, kind of in the leaving Black Canyon City, and then up Lane Mountain. It started hailing a bit, like very small hailstones. And I was just like the first 37 miles or so, it's just my body was just trying to figure out what was going on, trying to settle in, sort of thing. It happens a lot. Got to Crown King. Saw the crew for the first time, and then they were trying to force feed me solid food because I'm not a big solid food eater. They're like, you need to eat something solid, so I had half a burger. And then the section from Crown King to Arastra Creek was beautiful. Like, the sun was setting. We were expecting rain and snow, so I had all my waterproof gear on. It didn't eventuate. Up to Camp Kipper was a hard climb. I was actually with AJW, who is quite prominent in the Cocodona group. So I got to meet him and have some conversations with him. And we got up to Camp Kipper, I think it would have been midnight or between midnight and kind of like 2:30. And there was snow caked on the walls of the building. And I'm like, where the hell am I? Like, this is nuts. Oh, and actually, backtrack a bit. I was literally like 2 kilometers, so just over a mile into the race, and we were running in single file along the trail. And this woman was on the ground already, and she was like, I was just bitten by a snake. And everyone was like, what? And she's like, watch out for those rattlers. And we were like, did you actually just get bitten by a snake? And she, like, we were just talking amongst ourselves. I don't know who stopped, but I didn't stop. Turns out she just had to spend an hour at the medic tent to make sure she was okay, and she actually kept going, is what I'm told.
So it was probably non-venomous then. Probably.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because there were so many people around, so it's very unusual for a snake to be anywhere near the trail. But
for sure.
yeah, that's what happened. Like less than 2Ks into the race.
That would be a welcome to Arizona, right? The first.
Oh no, yeah, it's crazy. And I was like, okay, watch out for the snakes. I'm not getting bitten. Yeah, so Crown King to Arastra Creek was like my favorite part of the course. Maybe because it was like my best section. I think I did like a 4-hour 25K or like just under 4-hour 25K, which was crazy at the time. And then got up to Camp Kipper. There was snow on the building. A volunteer was like, yeah, we couldn't get into the building before the snow had like blocked the door. And then I sit down and I think I have pancakes or something. And I'm like kind of indecisive of what I'm going to do next. And then I'm like calling Katie because I'm thinking about sleeping at Camp Kipper or Camp Lomatochick. She doesn't answer because I got no reception. We can't hear each other. So whatever, I'll keep going. And I leave Camp Kipper, and it's like borderline snowing as I'm leaving. And I'm like, do I keep going in this, or do I just wait it out? Kept going. I was like, whatever. Like, I'll probably freeze to death, but anyway. And then I kept going to Camp Wamatochik. Tried Katie again. She answered. I'm like, okay, I'm at Camp Wamatochik. I got 12 Ks to Prescott. And then I leave Camp Wamatochik with like 5 other runners. And we get to this section of the course, which is like a 4-way intersection. And we're like, so the course marking had fallen off somewhere. And we're like, which way do we go? So there's like me and 5 Americans. So think of that, like 1 Australian, 5 Americans trying to figure out which way to go. And I had to kind of like separate myself from the group because it was getting a bit hostile. Like everyone's saying, no, we go this way. No, we go this way. No, we go this way. I'm like, okay, everyone just chill out. Let's figure it out. And they figured it out. So I was like, okay, I'll follow them. And then we follow them. And then they end up going straight at this turn. And me and this other guy turn left. And me and this guy were like, this is the right way. They've gone the wrong way. And I didn't end up seeing, I think I saw one guy from that group later on in the race. But me and this guy went the right way. And I was coming into Prescott, and I saw Javelina for the first time, which was crazy. I didn't expect to see them. I saw some deer. I got to Prescott, and this is where we tried to have my first sleep. Couldn't sleep. Too much noise. Too much going on. So I was like, whatever, let's just keep going. Change my clothes.
That's a raucous aid station, man. That's a party.
It was unreal. And like, it was so nice and warm inside. I'm like, I don't want to leave this. And then I picked Katie up for the first time, and I was just miserable for the whole first section. She was pacing me like through the Grenadelles and stuff like that. And she's like super happy. I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm in so much pain. I'm so tired. And then we get to Iron King. I eat some more solid food, and like, we've been rained on, like the rain's like on and off sort of thing. We're running through mud. And then we run to Fane Ranch, where I pick up Zach, my second pacer. And by this time, I'm feeling okay. I'm about to hit 100 miles. And then we leave Fane Ranch, and we're running across the paddock, or whatever you want to call it. And you can see Mingus in front of you, and you're like, okay, this is where I'm going. That's where I need to be. All these runners are in front of us. There's storm clouds to the left of us. There's storm clouds moving to the mountains. There's lightning. We're running on a trail that's like next to electricity poles. And I'm like to Zach, Zach, I'm not getting electrocuted in the middle of this paddock in Arizona while I'm trying to run Cocodona. And I said, let's go. And I put the hammer down, and I run what I think is really fast across Fane Ranch to the bottom of Mingus. Have this really good climb up Mingus. Get to Mingus, and then end up beating my crew. So me and Zach just sit down and enjoy some lasagna together. And my crew gets there. And because it had been raining for 2 days, we're like, okay, could rain again tonight on this descent into Jerome. Let's rug up. Let's be prepared. I try to have a sleep at Mingus. Doesn't happen. 2 guys in the same room as me. One of them snoring the house down. I'm like, okay, this isn't happening. So me and Geordie, my third pacer, we start the descent into Jerome, and it was beautiful. Like, when you get to the edge of Mingus at night time and you just see the trail of head torches down, you're just like, okay, I'm going there. This is amazing. And then we have that descent of switchbacks down into kind of the base of this mountain. And I end up passing like 10 people in this section. I'm like, nice. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling good. Let's do this, Geordie. We're traveling good. And then we get to the section that's like very red, like dirt, like clay, and like, if it was dry, it would be very runnable, but it wasn't. It was hell. And it was cold, and like, I hadn't slept in nearly 2 days, and I couldn't regulate my body temperature. And Geordie, he's like a dietitian, so it was good to have him. But I got to this point where I was feeling hot, but I was cold, and then I was feeling cold, but I was hot, and like layers weren't like taking layers off wasn't doing anything. Like I'd take a layer off and I'd just be cold. If I put a layer on, I'd be hot. Like I couldn't figure it out. And I stopped and I was like, Geordie, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I've never had a panic attack in my life, and this was like the closest thing to having a panic attack that I've ever experienced. And Geordie's like, just slow down. Let's just walk. Take some deep breaths. It's okay. We'll just like take it as slow as possible. We just need to like focus on your breathing. So we focus on my breathing, and then I have Sour Patch Kids in my pack, and he's like, do you have Sour Patch Kids? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, they're scientifically proven to help panic attacks, so have some of those. I'm like, okay, and I just grab all these Sour Patch Kids, and I'm just like down these, and I'm like, okay, everything's going to be better. And then we descend into Jerome, and by now it's 48 hours into the race, so 2 days. And I try to sleep in the van for the first time, and it doesn't happen. So I pick Katie up for the second time as Sedona Kenyas is starting. So we're halfway through the race when Sedona starts, and like the lead runners are going down the descent, and I'm just like hobbling down, and I'm like, good job, good job. I'm like, this is hell, but good job. And then like we get down, I think it's Clarkdale we get down into, and we run through there, and like vibes kind of pick up a bit because like all the Sedona Kenyans runners are running through, and like you're meeting people and speaking to people and interacting with them. And then I get to, is it Dead Horse before Deer Pass? One of the two.
Yep.
And I get to Dead Horse, and Katie has a burrito, and I have can of Coke, and we just sit down for a bit, and then we continue on to the next aid station. And I still haven't slept, and it's like I think it's like 58 hours into the race, and Katie's like, okay, the crew's set up this new bed arrangement for you at the next aid station. We're going to give you an eye mask. We're going to put AirPods in your ears. We're going to play some calming music, and we'll see if we can help you sleep. And so we do that. And next thing I know is I wake up, and I'm like, did I sleep? And they're like, yeah, you were snoring. So it was about 58 hours into the race that I had my first sleep. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then I picked up Zach, and we were running into Sedona. And I think by this point we were about 250 Ks in. So this is a distance PB by this point. And like what I was experiencing throughout the race was after aid stations, I'd be good for 10 kilometers and then kind of like slow down. Like there was points, I was like 250 Ks in, and I'd be running uphill, and I'd be like, yes, this is awesome. Like we're feeling good. We're doing good. We're making some good time. Then by the time I'm getting into the next aid station, I'd just be dead again. And then got into Sedona, had a burger, felt really good. Tried to sleep, couldn't sleep. Then we had Hangover Trail at night time, which was like crazy. And Geordie, my pacer, was like, "This is sick," and I'm like, "No, it's not. I'm on my hands and knees trying to get up this cliff," and he's like dragging me up. And I'm like, "Oh, this sucks." And then we have the big climb into Foxborough, and then we have the long run into Foxborough. I get there, and me and some Sedona runners were just like huddled around the campfire. We're just like talking to each other, and we're like, how did someone invent a race like this where you can like travel from like Black Canyon City all the way to Flagstaff? And like one of the Sedona runners was like, "Oh yeah, I met you yesterday morning in Jerome." I'm like, "Oh, did you? I don't remember you." And then it was quite funny because the interaction, like as much as we do love running, it's kind of funny to take the mickey out of it and ask ourselves how stupid it really is what we're doing. So it was good to have a laugh about that at Foxborough with some other runners. And then I had another successful sleep. So 3 days in, I've slept twice for 45 minutes. and then had my first solo section of the race, which was pretty difficult. It was very slow into Munns Park. I stopped a few times, celebrated 300 kilometers by sitting down on a rock on the side of the trail.
That's a perfect celebration. That
Yeah,
is, you just enjoy it and just take a rest. I love
that's
it.
it. That's it. I sat down. And I was like, "Yep, I deserve this." And then continued on to Munns, and then I picked up Katie at Munns, and this was probably like at this point the rain had died off and the conditions were getting better. It was getting hot now. Had Katie for about 30 k's into Kelly Canyon and then Fort Tudhill,
Mm-hmm.
and then again Katie, like I think because she's my partner and who I spend like every day with, I think I just gave her the worst of my whole experience, and she copped it right on the chin and like just rolled with the punches and just accepted the fact that I was kind of more miserable in the moments I was with her than any other moment in the race. And we actually travelled quite well into Fort Tudhill. I was struggling quite a bit. I knew that we had a solo section coming up. It was the last night, and I didn't really want to run by myself at night time in another country like that. I had no idea what was around. So coming into Fort Tudhill, I was telling myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay here for 4 hours or whatever until the sun comes up, and I'm just gonna do the last bit in the day. And then I get to Fort Tudhill, and Geordie, who's like my crew chief, he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. Just have a couple hours rest, try and sleep, and then we'll figure it out when you wake up. So I try and sleep on the last night. Didn't happen, didn't sleep, got up, and then we tried organising with other crews and other runners that the runners would run together. But by the time we were about to leave, other runners had made the decision to just go by themselves and just power through, run as hard as possible so they don't have to spend much time by themselves. And I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to do my own thing. I rugged up, got my clothes on, got all my nutrition for the next 26 Ks. And I left Fort Tudhill about 12:30 on the last night. And then it took me 6 hours to get to Walnut Canyon. And this was like a very like liberating part of the race that I think about a lot, because I was by myself at nighttime in unknown territory. And I was like to myself, I was like, you know what? If anything happens to me, if I get attacked by a mountain lion, if I don't know, collapse on the side of the trail, you know what? It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. I'm just here and I accept whatever happens to me. And it was quite enjoyable, the section. Like, I was just watching the hours tick by, and then I was coming up to Walnut Canyon at sunrise on the last day. And as you were saying, Katie got a video of me like trying to run into Walnut Canyon, and she's like, oh, here he is, look at him running. And I'm like barely running. And I'm like, last day, and she's like, woo. And I have a successful sleep, 30-minute sleep on the last morning. I get up with Geordie, and yeah, we do the last section, and I pick up Zach for the Mount Eldon part of the race. We ran out of water halfway up Mount Eldon, and for some reason I had thought there was a water station on top of Mount Eldon, which there wasn't. There had never ever been any talk of there being a water station on top of Mount Eldon. It was just something that I was making up.
It's the ultra brain.
Yeah, it's an ultra brain. And then halfway down, some other runners gave us some water, and then we just kind of had to death march to Trinity Heights, where we sat down for a bit. And then me and Zach, and there was another runner there. She was getting strapped up, and me and Zach left before her. And when we left, I was like, Zach, no one else is passing me for this race. I'm going, and we're going to be there within an hour and a half. And I ran most of the last 4 miles, and like,
nice.
Yeah, just enjoyed running fast for once in the race. It was my quickest splits, so I was running like 6-minute Ks by the end of it. And yeah, I finished and did a shoey at the finish line, and yeah, it was it was a nice finish to like an amazing adventure, and I think about it now, and I'm so like thankful that I'm able to remember so much of the race. And I kind of think about how focused I was during the race, and if I actually took in most of the course, or like took a moment along the race to kind of I don't know, appreciate what I was doing and appreciating where I was. And I think the fact that I'm able to remember so much kind of tells me that I did.
I think that's special because I really didn't when I did it, and I really regret not slowing down. Not
Mm.
that I was winning the race or anything, but slow down and then like you said,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
enjoy where you are. Some of my favorite places in Arizona, I'm going through, and I'm seeing it from a place that I'd never see it unless I was on this course.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you did because I think it was like a few months after I finished it, I was like still remembering things. And
Yeah,
a
yeah,
friend of mine was telling me a story about when he paced me, and I was like, I don't even remember that. And
yeah,
the
yeah,
memory's slowly coming back. So how amazing. And the fact that you guys are so far away from home, and it probably just made that experience so much more special. You cross the finish line, everyone's there. That's got to be just an amazing feeling. For me, I grew up going to Flagstaff, and
Mm.
it's just like, oh, it's Flagstaff, Heritage Square, oh, okay, I've been here before. But
Yeah.
it's got to be so special being in such so far away from home, and different different geography. I just can't imagine what that felt like. It had to have been amazing.
Yeah, I just like try and take moments. I kind of have to sit down like and give myself perspective, sort of thing, on what I'm doing and where I am. There was one point in the race where one of my mates he sent Katie a message, and like he's having some struggles, some mental health struggles at the moment, and he just told me in the video, he's like, you choose to do this, don't be miserable, because like the reason you're there is because you choose to be there. So he kind of, in a nice way, he kind of said, suck it up and just keep doing what you're doing. And then I was trying to call him. Oh, well, I was thinking of calling him, and I was like, I don't think that's a smart idea, because like if I called him, I probably would have cried. And I kind of, even though like it's nice to show your emotions, I kind of pride myself on being a strong person for those around me, and especially like being a strong person in difficult moments for myself. I pride myself on being able to just kind of suck it up and like stay focused on the goal at hand. And like I would have loved to be the big dramatic person who cried at the finish line, but I think my for my own for myself, I just like to be strong in moments, and like inside I'm very emotional, but on the outside I'm just trying to be strong and say, yeah, I've done this, and yeah, I feel strong and proud of what I've achieved.
Well, I mean, at the finish line too, it is emotional, but it's also surreal.
Yeah,
It
for
doesn't
sure.
feel like you don't feel like you're done.
Yeah,
You know you're
exactly.
done, but you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, where am I going? And
Yeah.
people are like moving you around because it's like, what have I done? Where? Oh, okay, finish. Do I want to eat anything? I don't know. Do you want to sit by the fire? I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
want to? I don't know. Like your mind is just in a space where it's just so hard to really kind of grasp what you're doing. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I usually have moments after races where I'm like, okay, or like my body kind of shuts down once I stop running. So it kind of, I'm kind of like nervous about that happening, especially on these long distance runs. So it's kind of like I finish the race, and I'm like, okay, what are you going to do now, body? Are you going to shut down on me? Or are you going to be able to walk to the car?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to. One thing that I did want to ask you, because I know after I finish, I hate the car ride home. So I can't imagine what the flight was like back to Australia. But it sounds like you were at Airbnb for a bit. So did that kind of help
So
brace you for the flight?
yeah, so because we had like just before we got to Wildcat Hill, there was a content guy just before there, and he had his phone out, and Geordie, who was pacing me at the time, they interviewed me, and then Geordie was like, "Do you know what a shoey is?" And the guy on the content was like, "Yeah." And Geordie was like, "He's going to do one at the finish line." And so from there, up Mount Eldon, then down Mount Eldon, I was like, I'm not doing a shoey. Like, there's no way. And like being dehydrated, having a headache, I was like, Zach, I cannot do a shoey at the finish line. It will kill me. And then I get there, and I think they've already had a few beers, and Geordie just has a Bud Light, pours it into my shoe. And so I do that, and then Geordie's like, all right, what do you want to do? You want to go have some beers, or do you want to get like some food? I'm like, let's just like get some food and go back to the Airbnb. So we actually go to In-N-Out and get some burgers, and then we go back to the Airbnb. It wasn't too bad, the initial like recovery, like the night of, and then the day after. I did have some very swollen feet and ankles, and then we had about a week until we flew back to Australia. I was very aware of the risks of flying maybe like a day or two after the race, so that's why I gave myself a week.
Smart.
Even a week after, my legs were still swollen. I didn't get any compression socks or anything, but the flight was okay. It was a bit longer than expected. It was me and the crew all got a bit sick after the race, so I was fighting off a cough, and then Dad, he was getting worse as the week went on, and then he ended up having COVID the week after the race. So yeah, it wasn't too bad, the flight home. It was just more so like having to wait for the flight, and then like the time itself more so than my body was what I was dreading most.
Interesting. Yeah, I heard a few people talk about getting sick. Cameron Haynes on his podcast, debriefing about the race, he talked about getting the neurovirus. I've never even heard of that. So there was something floating around up there.
Yeah, because I think it was the weather, and then I think maybe the altitude might have had something to do with mine. I was experiencing like a sore throat throughout the race, and then I eventually lost my voice. But by the time I was done, and then the day after, my throat had like gotten wet again, and like the cough I had was wet. And then Katie, the day after, I don't think she dealt with the altitude as well as like some of the other crews or my crew did, and she was like felt terrible the day after. Oof. And then she had like I made her sick, and then I think I made Dad sick as well. So yeah, I don't know. Something was going around, and I think like there was a lot of factors like running an ultra marathon, for example.
Yeah, well, yeah, some about 256 miles and immune system. Yeah, some was going on. Well, this is such a cool story. I mean, like just for me again, trying to relate. I just can't relate to this being so far from the actual event, finding it, getting prepared. The financial part about it, because it's not just the entry fee, it's the flights and, the renting the van, the Airbnb. It's just a huge investment. So, I mean, kudos to you. I've done the race, but I still hear your story more in depth now. And just thinking about it when I met you, it was so motivating to be like, man, look at this. This is so cool. So I just want to thank you for sharing that. And I want to give you a chance to kind of, I like to give the people that I interview the chance just to kind of talk about, mention any people specifically or things that you've learned during your ultra, just to kind of wind down the podcast. Share with us your feelings after, or shout people out. I'd love to hear your closing thoughts.
Ultra running in general is just like, I think for anyone who just wants to have a bit of discipline in their lives and like chase something that seems to be much greater than like just being a person sort of thing. I think what I'm trying to do with it is just show that you can still live a normal life and do these crazy things. Like, you don't have to be an elite runner. You don't have to be quick. All you need to do is just have a bit of drive and just stay hard at work and be motivated. I've had a lot of people influence me, like even my mum. She has, like, my parents have never been runners. I found the sport myself, but mum has been like the glue that sticks my family together, and like just her and how hard she works just really motivates me to be a better person and a better runner. My coach, my previous coach, Simone, like taught me so much about the sport, taught me how to be quicker, taught me a lot about training, taught me how to be smart with it. Katie, she literally lives with me every day and deals with the ups and downs of what it's like to train for an event like this. She deals with me being upset, angry, whatever. She has it all, and she literally traveled halfway around the world to help me achieve this amazing thing. Cocodona in general has like taught me probably more in the last like month than I've learned in the 7 years I've been doing this. I was, to be honest, when the day I landed back in Australia, I was truly depressed about like my life in general, and I had so much brain fog going on. Even interacting with like people I knew, I just didn't want to do because it was just too much too soon, and I just didn't know how to approach the situation. And like moving forward, I'd love to come back and see what it's like again. And you just, in moments throughout the race, you kind of think about how much it sucks and how hard it is, and how much you'd rather be just like sitting on the couch doing nothing. And then you finish the race and you're like, God, that was amazing. Like I wish I was back there, like in the hurt locker and experiencing it, because literally the only way you ever get to experience moments like these is if you do it again. And like we have a group chat with the crew, and randomly I'll just message the crew like every week and just be like, what a journey, like what an adventure that we got to experience. And I think when you get to like me and you and like people I've met through ultra running, and in particular races, you have kind of this unspoken bond of knowing what the other person has gone through. And it's kind of nice to know that like you share this bond with someone you might know nothing else about. And I just love ultra running in general, and the fact I'm able to do it pretty much whenever I want. I'm very lucky when there's like other people in the world who are struggling with just day-to-day life. I just think ultra running teaches us so much about ourselves and the rest of the world, and makes you appreciate the small things more than anything.
Well, that's a very good summarization of the whole conversation and your whole experience. I think it's a beautiful way to wind down and end the podcast. Kudos to your crew, Katie, your dad, your mom, all these people involved. I mean, that's such an effort. I just, for whatever it's worth, you've really made a huge impression on some random guy in Arizona. So
well, you've made an impression on me from a guy creating memes.
Oh man, I just started doing that for fun, and that it a lot of people have related to it, and so it's just fun to kind of share that. It's like that. It's kind of like you were mentioning people who've done Cocodona or these other long events. You have that little fraternity where you kind of know, hey, this, you kind of have that bond. And I think that's come out with the memes. People feel that, the struggle or the funny part that is highlighted in that meme. So I've just had a lot of fun doing it. And, obviously I don't get paid to do it. So I just keep having a good time and,
that's it.
Share them. But Toby, go ahead.
And just before we finish, I think when I ran into you, I was actually struggling throughout the race, and I remember seeing the Death March running hat, cowboy hat, and I was like, I know that hat from somewhere. And then I was like, hey, that's Back of the Pack Ultra guy. And then that in that moment, it really lifted my spirits to be able to meet you.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. It sounds like we were both having a struggling moment and helping each other, and you know, so I really appreciate you sharing that. And actually, speaking of Death March, to thank you for coming on the podcast, I'm going to send you a gift from Death March Running Company just as a way to say thank you. Don't know how long it'll take to get there from Colorado where they're located, but I'll definitely get that in the works, and I'll get your information offline and get that sent over to you. But again, thank you so much for doing this. This has been so much fun, and just keep at it. You're inspiring people all over the place.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Toby.
Thank you.
See ya.